Hey everyone, how are you doing? It's Marla. Hopefully my modern technology of my iPhone camera is not cattywampus and is filming level. I promised a couple of videos on some products that I got from Octoly. I know you're probably sick of hearing the description of Octoly, but I'll just give a quickie rundown of it in case you're not familiar with it. Octoly, I believe, was a startup company that was started by YouTubers, and basically it works with brands and creators, for example, of YouTube videos, creators, for example, that have an Instagram following or Twitter following, just creators of material that can reach other people. And the way it works is they have some guidelines as to, how many followers or how many subscribers you have to have. But basically, they work with brands. You as a creator log on to their website, kind of decide what area that you're interested in. Are you interested in beauty or fashion or other areas? You check that off, and then you can browse their site and pick brands products that you'd like to try, that you maybe haven't tried before, or maybe products that you already like, and they will send you a sample of it. And the only thing you have to do for them is a review. They don't give you any guidelines for the review. It's just basically a straightforward, hey, just review this product once you get it. So that is something that I'm for. I don't like any strings attached with anything when I do reviews, and I really liked working with them. So one of the products that I received was this Real Techniques new sponge. I have the old Real Techniques sponge. I also have my beauty blender here, but this is called the Real Techniques Miracle Diamond Sponge, and it's by Sam and Nick, the Pixie Woo sisters. And it's interesting. This sponge, you can use it dry or wet. I think they said you need to get a new one maybe every 1 to 3 months, I guess depending on use. And it's interesting. They tell you on the back of this little package that it came in, they have a picture of the sponge here, and it shows all the different sides of the sponge and what they feel they should be used for. For example, the base of the sponge, this big flat surface at the bottom, is to buff and blend for a flawless finish. And then if you look at this flat, long side right here of the sponge, that is to function as a wedge to apply makeup to larger areas. You look at this kind of flat surface, but slightly smaller right here, this kind of rectangular area right there. That is to work around the eyes, mouth, and brow bone. And then the tip, this little point, covers small imperfections. You can use it wet or dry, just depending on what kind of coverage you want. Now, for the review, I'm going to compare this Miracle Diamond Sponge to my Beauty Blender and my Real Techniques sponge. So if you look at them right now, they're all dry. So they're all pretty, how am I going to do this? They're all pretty similar in size, kind of dry. Now, if I close my eyes and I do this squeeze test, squeeze, I would say these two are the closest in the way they feel, how much resistance I get when I squeeze. This one is slightly a little tougher than these two. And what's interesting is when I first got this sponge and felt it, it reminded me a lot of my sponges, sort of, that I get in, like, the little sponges you use, kind of like the cheap little sponges you use for, for powder for your face. When I squeeze these two, they feel a little similar. They really do. So I would have to say they both have the same consistency. When it comes to applying product, I tried this, and I will actually do a demo of this, but I'll give you a brief overview first before I show you the demo. When I wet this and I tried to use it to pat in my foundation or buff in my foundation, I feel like I have a hard time gripping this little tip for some reason. I don't know, maybe that's just my arthritic thumb, but I just don't like the feel, as opposed to the feel of kind of grasping my beauty blender and just kind of pounding it that way on my face, not pounding it, but pressing it in my face that way versus trying to grab this tip. I almost feel I have to grab it down at the end to kind of get a good grip on it. So in that respect, I sort of like my beauty blender better. My Real Technique sponge I thought I used to like, but I've kind of let this go. I have gone back to my beauty blender again. I just have a hard time finding anything that compares to this. For around my eye area, I don't find this, I really just don't find this to be the typical thing I prefer to use around the eye, and the point of this is kind of flimsy, so I don't necessarily, as you can see, like tapping that in necessarily either. My other problem is this seems to absorb. You can see I put makeup on with this, my foundation. I put foundation on with this. But you can see how much foundation still seems to be in this sponge. It seems to suck up, I don't know, it seems to suck up my foundation more into the sponge versus putting it on my face. And then the other thing is I've had this beauty blender probably for over 6 months. And to me, it still works great. I just don't know how well this is going to hold up. They say replace it 1 to 3 months, and I could definitely see this breaking down fairly quickly. Okay, so that's my basic just kind of overview. So what I'm going to do is, because I like this one the best, and because I feel the consistency of these both feel the same, I'm going to wet this one, and I'm going to wet this one, and I'm going to come back. I'm going to take my foundation off here on my cheeks, and then I'll show you how they apply. So I will be right back. Okay, so I washed everything off kind of from here down, and I moistened both of them, so they're both fairly have the same consistency when it comes to how much moisture in them. So you can see how much they have blown up from water. The diamond really is, again, the diamond to me is just a little awkward for my hands, and I just don't know why. It just is compared to this beauty blender, which is shaped like an egg, which just seems to fit in my hand better. That's just me. Anyway, I put my correctors around my eyes, and I'm just gonna use this Clinique Even Better foundation, and I'm gonna put a couple drops of this. 1 drop here. That's not really a drop, but I'll put it over here. And I'm going to use my beauty blender on this side. I just like the feel of the beauty blender. I guess I like the way it feels in my hand. I think that's what my bias is. I just like more the feel of it in my hand. Okay. I think I have that already in. And then I'm looking at the base of it, and you can see there's a little bit of the foundation, obviously, that is still stuck on the base of it. So now I'm going to do this side, and I know they said you could do foundation with that little corner, but that just seems like to me it would take forever. So I'm going to try the big base to buff in my foundation. When I look at both sides of my face, I don't know, but I just feel like this sucked up more foundation than this one sucked up. I just feel like this left more foundation on my face versus this, which kind of sucked up the foundation in the sponge. Now I'm going to do my under eye area, and I'm going to use my Tarte Shape Tape, which I love. The only problem with this is this dispenser is a mess, Tarte. This needs to be fixed. This is so gross. It just makes a mess everywhere. I'm going to put a little dot of that here and a little dot of that there. Normally, I do not use a beauty blender much to tap this in, but I'll do it today. So I'm going to tap this in with my beauty blender. And that is pretty much easily tapped in. Now, they said you can do this little rectangular surface for this under eye area. That's too big for my under eye area. I just can't jam this. I don't like that. So I'm going to try a little diamond tip to get it in. And this just, I just don't like that. And you can see it left a line of concealer there. So I'm going to go back over it with this. And voila, that just kind of is so easy for me. You know, I hate to say anything against this because for the longest time, I really liked the Real Technique sponge, this Real Technique sponge. And honestly, I actually prefer to squeeze this and put my under eye concealer in versus using this tip or using this. It just doesn't fit. Anyway, my opinion, I don't think there's anything wrong with this sponge other than the fact of some maybe quirks that I have regarding the way it feels to me. Number one, when I put water on it, it really blows up so big in my hand that it's just very awkward for me. If I'm using it for foundation, I want to kind of get something to grip. I almost have to grip it like that and then pound it that way versus my versus my Beauty Blender. And my Beauty Blender, when I squeeze it, feels a little bit firmer than this. This feels like it's not leaving foundation as much on my face as this one is. This one feels like it's just sucking the foundation up more. I don't feel that all these sides to me are helpful. I just basically need something to put my foundation on and something sometimes to help with concealer. I mean, I guess you could theoretically use this side for contour, but I can use that also really with my Beauty Blender. And a lot of times I don't like to use sponges for contour anyway. So not a bad product. I just don't know necessarily if it is any better than the Real Technique sponge they originally came out with. And I don't think it can compete with my Beauty Blender. For the longest time, I thought that I could find something to replace my Beauty Blender, and I've tried, but I keep going back to the Beauty Blender, and I feel the Beauty Blender really holds up to use better than this will. Because already, I've only used this a couple times, and already it just doesn't feel, it feels like it's losing a lot of it. It's becoming really soft and kind of gooey feeling. I guess that's the best way to kind of describe what I'm feeling in my hands. Versus my Beauty Blender still feels nice and firm. And when it dries, it's nice and firm and it just keeps its shape. It feels so good in my hand. Hard to beat. So anyway, that is my review. That is a kind of a brutally honest review. Nothing against them. I love all my Real Techniques brushes. It's just this sponge, I just don't find it fitting into my personal tools that I use to put my makeup on. I will see you guys soon. Take care. Bye-bye from Marla.